Hi, this is Majinoni, and here's another edition in DC important events in DC history. This time, what we're going to do is cover the new Teen Titans, specifically the introduction of Terra and the Judas contract. Now, for those of you who don't know, back in probably the early 1980s or so, the Teen Titans were the #1 title in comics. You know, it was beating everything, including the X-Men, and in fact, this was DC's answer to the X-Men. This was, as you can see, created by, or these stories here were created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. And they were basically the, the go-to team at the time. And, as you can see, the basic lineup really hasn't, well, I guess it's changed a little bit over time, but, you had Robin, Cyborg, Wonder Girl, Kid Flash, Raven, Starfire, Changeling, or Beast Boy, and then you also had Speedy, or, who later became Arsenal. Now, what was really important about these issues here is basically it introduced an unusual concept that normally really didn't happen, and that was basically a spy on a superhero team. Now, to get the full concept of what the whole story, I think, for the most part, these are the two trades you really do need. There's some other stuff that happens, I believe, in the middle, but this gives you the introduction to Terra, and then this is the ultimate betrayal here. Now, Terra basically, in case for those of you who don't know, she is the sister to Geoforce, and she basically was recruited, I guess you can say was recruited by Deathstroke. And for obvious reasons, I mean, she's incredibly powerful with her Earth powers. And basically, what he did was he fed her a story, basically where this is how you're going to gain the trust of the Teen Titans. And then what she did was she worked to gain the Teen Titans' trust. Now, she was pretty smart at it in the sense that the person that you need to go to is need to go for Changeling, because obviously Changeling is going to fall in love with her. Because he's kind of like a loser type hero who can't get the girl type thing. And here's a girl who will at least talk to him. Now, her original costume was kind of lame looking, but it did get a little bit better later on. Now, after a series of battles saying, she can't, she had to do this because she was being forced to, she didn't want to, eventually the Changeling is able to capture her, take her back to the base, and they learn her history of what's going on. Now, while that's going on, we get the Brotherhood of Evil involved, and this was like the original Brotherhood of Evil. And then we also had the recurring theme of are the villains of the Hive and Brother Blood, and through both of these books. Another important event was the relationship between Wonder Girl and Terry, her soon-to-be husband who later died. So this is where their relationship originally started in these issues here. Let's see. Now, Raven sensed that there was a problem that was, that Terra's story just didn't quite make sense, because she's empathetic and she sensed that there was a feeling that shouldn't have been there, but she didn't understand why. And then also, because she was part, Trigun's essence was in her. There was a good and evil side, and she wasn't sure if that evil side was corrupting her and giving her, in a sense, giving her a false reading. Now, from here, I mean, it's like as I was rereading this, it's really weird reading these old stories, because you get old hairstyles, you get old clothing, the way the manner of speech they use, like especially cultural references that they throw every now and then. Like at the beginning, Gar's playing Atari rather than like a Nintendo or PlayStation or something like that. So that part was kind of like, you're kind of like in this weird time warp type thing. But I think the art still holds up, because George Perez is a really, really talented artist. But anyways, from here, like I said, basically this trade here is gaining the trust of the Titans, and you see a little bit of Deathstroke laying his trap. Now, the next set of issues here is in the Judas contract. This is where everything turned upside down. As you can, it's written by the same creative team, Perez and Wolfman, and it's basically, like, between the two volumes, you get there's a lot of fighting between the different villains, and you actually get in this volume here a little bit of history of Deathstroke, how he met his wife, and then their children and things like that. From there, we get to meet Jericho, who is Deathstroke's other son, and then what really was unusual about Jericho was he was a mute. So he, because he couldn't speak, now you had a superhero who had to use sign language to communicate with the rest of the team. And what happened is his meta power was basically the ability of possession. If he can get an eye contact with somebody, he can possess their body. And he basically his body just kind of like disappears and he goes right into that person. Now, the other thing that was kind of like a recurring theme in these two trades was you had Dick Grayson. He was kind of becoming distant to Starfire, and you can tell there's a lot of things that was troubling him. Like, he was really pushing himself, and he had a lot of issues that were going on. And some of this was identity crisis with, him with being Robin, underneath Batman. And then from here, after the Titans get captured, Dick Grayson discovers this, and he eventually dons a new costume, and he becomes, this is the first time we see Nightwing, which is coming up over here. Oops. Yeah, so we get the introduction of Nightwing, and then we get the introduction of Jericho. And Jericho was, I guess you can say, one of those tragic characters. One, he's born under Deathstroke is his first mistake, and then the second mistake is he joined the Teen Titans, because Titans of old, a lot of their supporting characters died, and they didn't die very well. So eventually, hinting now what's going to happen with Terra, and which isn't really any surprise. If you've been following Blackest Night, you saw Terra come after Gar as a Black Lantern. Well, basically, Deathstroke captures the Titans, brings them to the Hive agents, per his contract, and then battle ensues, and then eventually Terra kind of goes crazy, and eventually gets buried underneath her own powers, which sends Gar to a fit of depression, and then also the rest of the superheroes, now they have that sense of betrayal since they had brought somebody into their fold, and they were backstabbed by this person. Also, in the Judas contract, that's where Donna Troy accepts the marriage proposal for Terry, and that's also setting the stage for tragedy. And I'll probably do a review of that bit of history later. But at least for right now, this is the gist of what was going on in the with Terra and the Judas contract. Now, like I said again, this was a story like this just didn't happen. I mean, it would almost be like, for an example, if you imagine the X-Men brought in Storm, and everything was fine, and then right during the battle with Magneto, Storm betrayed the X-Men. That's the kind of impact, that kind of story, this is the kind of impact the story actually had at the time. Because it was basically, it just didn't happen. And, it was just totally shocking. And it was really, like I said, overall, the story, if you can stand the old style hair, the clothes, and everything like that, would highly recommend this. This is probably one of my more favorite DC storylines. I don't have a lot of favorite storylines for DC, but I used to read a lot of Teen Titans, and this was really, really good. Now, if you do try to buy this, I'm going to warn you ahead of time. This trade is, I believe, out of print. If you go to Amazon, you're going to find prices ranging from $20-some to $100. Now, I bought this one used. This was like basically like new used, which, you know, I'll accept the sticker here. But overall, it's not too bad. You know, I think it was like around $19. I think if you wait a little bit, DC's doing those hardcovers where they're reprinting the old comics, and I think that's where they're going to reprint this trade that way. This one, I've seen this trade floating around, so this will probably be a little bit easier to get, but this is the one that's going to be tough. And this is actually, like, this is the payoff trade, so I would just wait until they reprint it. Or if you can find it used or at your comic book shop, pick it up. But anyways, that's a little bit of DC history. If you have any comments or questions, just let me know. Rate the video up or down, let me know what you think. And I'll have more reviews later. So until next time.